get the deal closed. Get the deal closed. We got the deal. Yeah.
Bensound.com.
Hey everybody, I want to introduce you to episode 4 of the Land to Sea Commercial Team podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Chad. I'll let him introduce himself, but what I really like about Chad is he has a similar background to myself in the IT world, and brokerage as a whole has really taken on combining technology with more old-fashioned brokerage practices. Our brokerage in particular, EXP, we have an entire metaverse where everybody can meet in, and really sounded gimmicky at first, but man, does it really break down the doors and the boundaries across states, even across countries. It is so easy through technology for us to connect with anybody in the world with our platform that they've built at EXP Commercial. So I want to talk to everybody about, obviously this is a challenging market. It's making technology and systems and CRMs and how you're finding deals that much more important. And I feel like Chad is really in tune with that side of being a broker and working with a broker. If you're a client listening to this, you want to make sure that your broker is very tech savvy and that your team has these tools in place, because it's kind of the only way to find a good deal right now. So without further ado, Chad.
Hey guys, I'm Chad Massaker. It's like Texas Chainsaw, so you can get rid of all the awkwardness there. My background is that I'm from Atlanta, moved to West Palm about 4 years ago, right before COVID. I owned an IT company for 20 years, managed IT services, small and medium help desk support, small and medium-sized business help desk support, IT security, HIPAA compliance, stuff like that. Also had a couple of nonprofits, Tap Out Human Trafficking, which was anti-human trafficking 501c3. And then I had a social club called Speakeasy, which was a 501c6, which is basically like a excuse for Atlanta business owners and executives to get together over cigars and scotch in that legitimate format. I had a few other smaller startups that really didn't go anywhere, and then just, I guess, had a midlife crisis, decided to move here, get married, become a dad again, and start a career in commercial real estate. And now you're all caught up. I spent my first 2 years, spent my first few months at Illustrated Properties, then Compass for 2 years, until finally moving to EXP, which has been godsend. EXP has, everything you said earlier is absolutely correct. It's definitely more my speed. It's more cutting edge. It's more focused on the tech. Just everything about it is different. I mean, the average age of a commercial realtor in this country is 60 years old. Not to be ageist, but you don't see that, here at EXP. It's a slightly younger crowd, a more tech savvy crowd from what I'm seeing. I like that. I like the fact that people are innovative and focused on that. When I went to other broker events in the past with other brokerages, you go to a meetup, or it feels like it's more like a beauty contest, whereas when we're having meetups, it feels a bit more collaborative. And when I went to my first shareholder summit, I knew right away I was ready to join EXP, based on the value you get, but also the people that I met there, which is different than the other places I had worked under brokerage wise. So wasn't really intending to give an EXP commercial, but there you go. I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
No, that's awesome. So where do you feel like your background in IT has given you an advantage in real estate?
Oh, sure. That's real easy. Just straight up digital marketing, biz dev, lead gen. I'm somebody who has, I don't know, I can look about 100. Well, no. So I've had 113 opportunities in my pipeline for the past year. 78 of those are currently active. I have no problem getting leads, and I don't cold call. That's all through digital marketing. It's all leveraging, things like Google My Business, which commercial realtors really are underutilizing, I think. Residential real estate people get it, but commercial realtors, a lot of them that I run into don't seem to. LinkedIn, obviously, for commercial real estate's huge. And then, I think one of the things that is the most underused thing, ironically, is the stuff that EXP provides. It's but where we have problems, I think, I don't know if it's as a brokerage, but just training wise or whatever, is getting things to connect to where we can make lead gen work. So like, we're great about teaching about Reonomy and tech, teaching, maybe about a CRM, right? But not about how to connect those things, get the data in there and start automated, marketing campaigns, stuff like that. We looked at more kind of a manual approach. I'm hoping, and I hope to be a part of, affecting some change in that regard. But, EXP actually gives us some very powerful tools that we can use also for lead gen. And, I started a digital marketing campaign maybe 2 weeks ago. Just with the information I got from Reonomy through my CRM, and I'm working on, I think, just as a result of that campaign, probably 6, maybe 8 potential new listings, all industrial. It's either it'll be off-market commission-only deals, or they'll be full-on listings. So it's been great. Tech, everything else. I mean, just having all the other knowledge in my background, I can do things quickly. I can configure CRMs quickly. And then I find, like, with my mentees who haven't been in tech, they need help getting their CRM set up right. Or I've got one guy now who's having trouble getting his Google My Business profile verified. I'm working on that with him. All that stuff's second nature to me. But I think if you can get the tech right in the beginning, you can front load so much of the work. And really cut down, they say the average time of when a new commercial realtor gets licensed and until they get their first deal is 18 months. That's not sustainable. That really has to be shortened. Technology for sure is the way to do that. I mean, I get that we always talk about how, relationships are the key and all that, the old school way, and they are. But if you're somebody who's, moved here from a different state and was in IT like me before, I don't have any relationships. So I've had to, go about it a completely different way to get my leads. Right. And as it turns out, my way, I know, can get people leads that they can convert certainly under 18 months, certainly under 12, certainly under 6. I know 2 of my mentees right now both have, deals in the chamber, and the other 2 are brand new. So I don't really, we're just getting started with that.
Wow. Well, you touched on something really interesting. I wonder how many brokers know exactly how many deals they have in the pipeline, how many of those are active. So that was interesting that you gave an exact number. Talk about lead generation versus lead management, which I think is, there's a huge focus on lead generation, but I think a lot of people are missing out on properly managing their leads, whether it's second sales or following up or just tracking the deal from start to finish properly. Can you touch on that and how you're using technology to stay on top of leads that you get?
Sure. I'll preface this with a short, shameful promotion. If people on EXP are listening to this and they go to my workplace group, Chad's Technology Tips and Tricks or something, I actually have a video where I show you how I manage my pipelines and walk deals, opportunities through. I don't necessarily think I want to go through all that here, but one thing I do see that I do differently that I think a lot of other agents don't, and it probably might just be because they're not as savvy about how to use a CRM, is absolutely creating anything you're working on. You need to create an opportunity for it. If you're researching for somebody, that needs to be you need an opportunity that shows up in your pipeline and your CRM, and you work that opportunity until it goes down the line, offer, negotiation, acceptance, or you make it fall off the board. That's that part alone will fix everything. Because what happens inevitably is people, they get a great lead, potentially, they don't have a way of tracking it. Maybe they become a victim of their own lead generation, have too many leads, there's really no such thing. It's about filtering after that. But they're not walking that opportunity all the way through the sales process because they're not remembering steps. Something else, the tyranny of the now, gets in the way. And it's one-on-one. You go to any sales coaching class, it doesn't matter what the industry is. But I know for real estate for sure, you're supposed to be spending 1 to 2 hours on your database a day, period. And what that means to me is, making sure records are accurate, making sure opportunities are, number 1, put into the pipeline, but number 2, progress down to the pipeline or eliminated. And look, I don't have any illusions that I'm closing 100 deals. or 80 deals, whatever I said I had open. Probably 10 to 20% of that. But also, when I start failing out those deals, right, there's a way, opportunity-wise, I eliminate those deals off the board one of two ways. It's either a loss or it's abandoned. So loss to me is always negative. It's something that I feel like I could have done better. I messed up. They fired me, which hasn't happened. But, it's a negative connotation. Abandoned is what you probably think it is. It's ghosted. They've gone dark. Criteria has changed. It's going to be things that are not my fault that I feel like are out of my control. But it's important to be able to go back and look, at the past quarter, the past year, at your lost and your abandons, and say, okay, what could I have done better here? What, the abandoned side is, usually questions like, how could I qualify the tenant better or the buyer better, right? So that I didn't spend so much time with them. And on the loss side, it's like, okay, that's a conversion issue, right? So what sales skills am I lacking that failed to convert the client? And then I need to go figure out, what that is. So it's,
I'm so glad that you're saying that, because I feel that aside from the time it takes to build a good system and keep it up to date, it brings a level of accountability that I think stresses people out. I think that's why people avoid keeping up with their CRM, because they know that if they look at it, they will see some mistakes, some lost opportunities. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Here's the thing. Look, I'm not going to say anything anybody here hasn't heard before. This is, especially in the beginning, until you get, this all about relationship status, it's a numbers game. You need to get X number of leads, which, based on your usual conversion percentage, converts to this, which converts to, a closed transaction, yada, yada. It is numbers. Pure and simple. That's it. Unless you come to this game already with a super amazing sphere of influence, it's already happened to be real estate related, like you hang out, your whole neighborhood's filled with nothing but real estate investors. Okay, well, you know what? You're an exception to the rule. But, the majority of people that are coming into EXP Commercial are either brand new to the industry and or they were residential and they're crossing over from the realty side, which still makes them new to the industry. I mean, these two types of real estate really can't be, contrasted and compared. They're just not at all the same. It's a completely different set of skills, except for maybe the actual selling component. But even that has to change, because the way you sell a multifamily property obviously is very different than selling a single family property. So it's just different skills that have to be, taught and put into muscle memory.
Absolutely. And, to piggyback on this, and I'm going to pick on my partner, Doug Sullivan. He was a founding member of Outback and Olive Garden, and he sold that, and he created Stonewood Grill here in Florida. He grew that to 18 locations and did all the site development himself. So he's a pretty heavy hitter in the commercial space. And I want to say 6 out of 10 people that I get on the phone with know who he is. And his brain is an incredible Rolodex of opportunities. But, being old-fashioned, they didn't have CRMs back when they started. Heck, when he started, they didn't have the internet. So it's incredible when I find the time to force him to sit down for an hour and his brain gets going. He starts thinking of, well, this guy wants to buy this type of property and this guy might sell. And I'm just recording everything that he's saying. And it has, to say that it's opened the floodgates for business is an understatement. When I first started working with Doug a couple years ago, I believe, if memory serves me right, I believe he said that you really shouldn't have more than 10 deals in your pipeline because you won't be able to devote the attention and everything that you need. And, when you're operating at a high level like he is definitely right. But at the same time, now that we've combined my perspective and my background in technology and his years of experience and wisdom together, like you just said, we're working over right now. We have 67 active deals, and some of those we're working with our team members as well. But ironically, and I just talked to him this morning, he feels like there's more free time than when he was solely focused on 10 deals at a time. And it's because of that technology tracking the flow of the deal. Everybody on the team knows exactly where the deal is, where they can help, where they can't. And, without technology, there's no way we would be able to touch on this many deals. And obviously we all know it is a relationship game, but if you don't have the numbers, you won't have the relationships. We've noticed that the more deals we're touching, then that person refers 2 more people. This other person refers 2 more people, and it snowballs out of control. So it's been a breath of fresh air for Doug. Obviously, we appreciate his wisdom and his years of experience. And then what we, like you mentioned, with the average age of a broker, the younger people getting into commercial for the first time, what we have to offer is the digital marketing, the technology, being able to track everything. And a very scary word that my partner Doug will not touch is artificial intelligence. And you and I were just talking a little bit off camera about that. What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence? And actually, I'll change the question, because I don't feel that artificial intelligence, the true definition, even exists yet, which is a little scary. It's getting good. It's really good, but it's not quite there yet. What are your thoughts on AI and how AI can help us as brokers?
Yeah, so I think the answer I probably want to go with is the whole all things with moderation, or however that saying goes. AI obviously has the potential, not the potential, it already is creating extremely large amounts of leverage. Zooming way out from a macro perspective, obviously there's the issue of job replacement, how it affects the economy. If you were to have this conversation, I think 5 or 10 years ago, where everybody's talking about how technology and automation is taking over jobs, the inevitable pushback to that would be people saying, well, somebody has to be around to learn how to fix the automation. I don't think it's going to be an issue. But even then, it was still an issue because technology and automation is always a force multiplier. So if a piece of automation is brought in that replaces 20 jobs and you only need 2 people to fix the automation, it's still eliminating, what is that, net 18 jobs, right? So that's my zoom out, kind of worry. There's also worries about how AI, learns and how we guide it. It's only as good as the input we give it. There's been a couple scenarios where you're seeing AI being, inherently racist, but like accidentally or ignorantly, like Google put artificial intelligence into its photo storage program. And then in the photo storage program, if you use Google Photos, you'll notice it'll automatically create albums of faces, for example, of people that are in your family. So like it knows it's you, it knows this is your wife. And I think the example that it gave back then was like, this was when Google was just rolling out the AI, and there was a coder on the team for Google. He was a black guy, and he was experimenting with it, and Google AI put his pictures in a category called gorilla or ape or something like that, which was just, Google was mortified. Since then, that system can't even, they've completely removed the ability for it to do that. But you can see, and there was a Microsoft incident with Bing. I can't remember what it was. So bottom line is there's obviously
that
ways
was the bot that they unleashed on Twitter that became a Nazi.
Yeah. Yeah. So, technology is like, fire, guns, everything else, right? It's about the user. I'm not trying to get into, second amendment discussions or all anything like that, but it's, technology is only as good as the person that wields it. So that's pretty macro. Let's zoom in. Let's talk about, tech and real estate. Look, how have I used it so far? If you look at the past 15 blogs on my website, that's all ChatGPT. I didn't write a single word. One of my mentees, we needed to write him a profile, like a business bio. I went into ChatGPT. I said, hey, write me a great business bio based on this person's LinkedIn profile. Stuff it was something like he was a civil engineer or something. So you go through, you massage it. But look, what's the one thing that you get all the time is like, hey, can you write me a review, write me a bio? And everybody's horrible about writing about themselves. But if you're already marketing yourself so heavily as you should be in, commercial real estate online, why not go have an AI engine just look at you online, scan it, kind of give you a quick read over, however many thousands of pages there are about you, and it'll assimilate all that within seconds and say, okay, here's my best guess about how you want this guy to, read out in terms of the profile. I've had it write commercial real estate listing, like the short description for a listing. It's like, hey, just write me a listing description for this building. I know that there's some other stuff, but it's a useful tool. It also is probably like a lazy enabler a little bit.
Right, and I just want to touch on that real quick before I forget, because this, ironically, some people will say, well, does this make a broker's job, does this render them obsolete? And I would say quite the opposite, actually, and I'll tell you exactly how. I've noticed that a lot of these listing descriptions they're all starting to sound the same. They're all starting to sound really compelling. And it's obvious that, yeah, they are being lazy. They are using ChatGPT. We had a client that only wants industrial properties with a publicly traded company in a strong location. Well, ironically, they sent us 3 listings. It's a 1031 exchange, and they need to nominate their 3 properties. So they sent us 3 listings. All in the description said publicly traded company, strong location. All 3 listings, it was not a publicly traded company, and it was not in a strong location.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT must have done that listing description. They all looked pretty similar too. And we had to we actually had to get on the phone with the client and say, hey, look, this company's not publicly traded, and here's why this is not a great location. Don't trust the listing descriptions as much as you used to be able to. Don't trust a lot of the blogs. A lot of the things you're reading are being thrown together Frankenstein style by AI. And you still need a qualified expert who's a professional, who's in the market, who's actively working these deals to interpret the data, probably more important than ever.
You bring up a great point. I hadn't even thought about it from the perspective of, I guess, protecting our job, so to speak, as brokers, and saying, hey, with AI, don't believe everything you read. Because, ChatGPT, I can definitely attest, is not always accurate. I would argue not even super accurate. It's, 60, 70% of the time accurate. You definitely, the stuff that I put online that I use it for, I still have to proof it. I just didn't have to do the heavy lifting and writing it, but I still make sure everything in that article or whatever I wrote is accurate. And it's never, there's not a single listing I have where it's strictly ChatGPT text. Like, I always go in and embellish. But again, if I'm just trying to get something quick, like a foundation, I do find it useful for that. I think I can absolutely see, however, where, a company like LoopNet is going to start using AI a lot more. And I can see the ability for leasing, for example, the roles of leasing agents probably start to shrink a lot as companies like LoopNet leverage AI and could be more probably direct with the owner. Almost becoming like, CoStar LoopNet, almost like becoming the agent themselves. I don't know if that's on their roadmap, but it makes sense to me that it would be. Even like the buy-sell stuff, there's, I think auctions set a stage also for some of that. Because the more options there are, the more there's AI that can learn about how, bidding and price, all that stuff goes, and then it can come into play for everything else. So, I don't know, I feel like I'm rambling at this point. AI is something to watch. It's not the cure-all, but it's going to transform how we do our job over the next 3 to 5 years. I think that's where I'm at.
Absolutely. It's going to transform a lot. Some studies are saying that as of today, AI has taken over the majority of content on the internet. As crazy as that sounds.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking really less than a year since it's been unleashed on the public, and it's a race. How long has the internet been around? 2 decades, almost 3 decades?
Yeah.
So in less than a year, AI's written more content than humans have in 3 decades. So, within 2 years, over 90% of the content is going to be AI generated. And, we live in an era where people don't trust the news anymore. People don't trust media. And now AI is only going to compound that problem and make it a lot worse. So working with a good broker, working with a good team is actually more important than than it ever has been, in our opinion, to help you really find those good deals.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's great.
So, and when it comes to finding deals, can you touch on technology for that? I'll kind of tell you what my team's doing. We are, and this goes back to listing descriptions. You can't always trust them. You find a deal with a 15.8% cap rate for an apartment complex. Not only are their numbers wrong when you sit down and spend the time to audit them, but they haven't accounted for the fact that property taxes are going to go way up when your buyer buys. Property insurance is going to go up, especially here in the great state of Florida. It's kind of one of the only downsides to this market. This market's been very insulated. It's still a seller's market, very much so in Florida. But one of the bad things that we have to deal with is property insurance because of the hurricanes and Mother Nature going up. And finally, the interest rate, which is affecting deals everywhere. But we have that trifecta. When you audit a deal, and the advertisement says 15.8% cap rate, by the time you increase the taxes where they need to be, the insurance, and by the time you factor your client, your buyer's debt service versus the existing owner's debt service, it's now a 6 cap, which is still a good deal, but way off from where they're advertising it to be. Heck, some of them, actually, I would say the bulk of the double-digit cap rate deals that we've seen in the last 3 months have negative cash flow, negative when we audit them. So we've painstakingly created a system with 6,000 properties in it, most of them in Florida and Texas, and have manually audited the numbers and used formulas like averages for increasing property tax and insurance. Of those 6,000, how many would you guess came out above the golden 1% rule for cash on cash return?
So, 500.
70.
Jeez.
70. So talk a little bit about how you're using technology to find a good deal.
I was just I had to do the math in my calculator here. So that's like 1%, right? Less than 1%.
Yeah, less. Yeah.
So on the tech side, for me, I mean, it's pretty straightforward guerrilla marketing. I don't do like pay-per-click ads or anything. And I may end up going that way in the future, but my thing is I don't have a CBRE Marcus Mill chat budget for competing for keywords. So in my case, it'd have to be a super niche-y thing for me to, be able to keyword against. I'm not going to go against Marcus and Mill chat for, office space in West Palm Beach or whatever. So my tech stack, I already said it earlier, really is Google My Business. It's LinkedIn. It's social media in general for brand reinforcement. But it's Google My Business, LinkedIn, and Reonomy. And just, it's the Reonomy side is very campaign, mostly text business driven. And it's marketing best practices driven in that, I know it's going to sound simple, but these are things that make a difference. Every text message is personalized. It's like the campaign I just sent out earlier, it's going to say, hey, Kevin, you still want to sell, street address name, 123 Acme Street. So it mentions their address by name. I'll put, little emojis and stuff in there. All those things, those are all things that are designed to make sure people know that you're a human, even though it's all being done automatically with a CRM. But then I'll just blanket, in this case, I think I hit up 1,200 different industrial prospects for these 2 buyers that I'm working for. But that part is the other part too, is building up a buyer stream to where you can provide leverage and actual real world context that sellers seem to appreciate more. That's what I use. So I say, hey, I've got a dog resort company, or I've got my golf cart company that are looking to buy a space like yours. Would you be open to selling? And then that gets the conversation going. And out of that, so I mentioned I got like 6 or 8 potential deals flowing out of that. Half of those are not going to work immediately because they're investment properties. They're like, yeah, I'll sell, but it's fully leased. Here's all these lengths, yada yada yada. But like I'm ramming a little bit, but those are the primary ways I get leads. The ways ironically I do not get leads that have nothing to do with tech that I should be doing, is how I built my IT company, is networking. I don't belong to any chambers. I don't do BNI. I need to, but honestly, I've been so busy with what's right in front of me. I'm probably at a point where I just need to get a full-time physical admin, not a VA admin, to handle, property research, maybe even showings. But I'm at the point where I think I'm about as far as I can get with tech without spending more money in a way that I don't know if it's going to be effective or not, when I know I can go out and network and build relationships that way, which is, I know, probably almost antithetical to what we were talking about in the beginning, given my background, but I need to go meet people. So in terms of other tech that I think could bring in new leads, to me, it's just about, the problem that you have is when you're trying to get in front of sellers, it's an older crowd. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I send a text message or call somebody where, I find out from their sister, mother, spouse that the owner's dead. Commercial real estate is owned by old people. So, the tech really can only take you so far. If they're not online or online a lot, then it doesn't do you any good.
Right.
So, it's like I went a little bit of different directions there, but I'm done with that answer.
Well, ultimately, I think one of the purposes of this podcast is to highlight the human element, that no matter how much technology there is, you cannot replace the human element. You cannot replace.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, and it is interesting. A lot of we do a good bit of business brokerage as well. A lot of the business owners we deal with are still on pen and paper. We've got to convert them to digital so that we can sell their business, because I can't convey their financials through pen and paper to a potential buyer. We have 3 businesses right now where I physically had to drive to the owner's house and pick up the financials to convert them myself, because they didn't know how to email. They didn't know how to take the picture with their phone and text it. It's kind of hilarious, the things that you run into. We just had one where $4 million business, and we're trying to get the listing agreement signed, and I had sent it to them through DocuSign, and I called them the next day and I said, "Hey, did you guys see the DocuSign?" They're like, "No, nothing's come through the fax machine yet." I'm like, oh boy. Oh boy. So I had to end up printing it and taking it over to them, because I don't have a fax machine. But it's funny, and honestly, they appreciate it. They really appreciate, even though you and I are heavy into the tech game, they appreciate when either we break it down for them, or can still touch them on a human level and say, all right, if the technology don't work for you, forget about it. Let's work with what you're comfortable with. So we can do both. And now getting the buyers is going to require technology, especially in Florida. So many of these buyers are New York, Chicago, California. We're dealing a lot more with out of the country buyers coming in from Canada, South Africa, buying a business or a piece of commercial property that produces income to fast track their visa application. So you're going to need technology to touch those folks, obviously. But even some of them struggle with technology, and they can't get on a Zoom call. They can't get on a Google Meet like you and I are on right now. They can only do phone calls. Some of them can't text. So no matter what, at the end of the day, they're just tools, like you said. Same thing as guns. It's a tool at the end of the day. It depends on how the end user uses it. What's great about EXP is they give us a lot of tools.
Yeah, for sure.
We've got to stay on our toes and make sure that we're using our time efficiently, that we're using the proper tools. And I really love, I'll link your stuff in this video so you guys can check it out. But I really love what you're doing, because I feel like a lot of people are lost with the amount of tools being thrown at them. And your content really breaks it down and says, hey, here's what this is, here's what it does, here's why you should do it, especially for the mentees and people that are joining. So that's really why I wanted to have you on, to highlight your content. So that will be on there. Any parting words?
I did want to talk about one other thing that, something you said earlier. I think we were talking about the AI and having AI write listings and about the inaccuracy of it. I would and I don't know if I'm going to be, ostracized for saying this about our industry, but we have, just as bad as AI can be inaccurate, we have a lot of lazy people in this industry whose professionalism is not at the right level. And if you've ever gotten into residential, I've never done residential real estate, but I have managed residential agents. One of the things you learn very quickly when you join an MLS is the MLS has, listing standards. The photos that you post, the accuracy of the information, all of that stuff, and agents can actually report on or arguably against each other if they see false or misleading or bad information that does not follow the listing standards established in the MLS. For the life of me, I can't figure out why we don't have that on the commercial side, like at CoStar or something like that. That drives me nuts, because forget the AI written ones that are inaccurate. I get that, but when you got actual human beings that are writing inaccurate stuff or simply not writing enough, I've seen industrial listings where there's roll up doors, and on CoStar it shows 0 drive-ins or docks, and it's like, how can you not update the listing? Or the zoning? I mean, the zoning is at least 50% wrong, 50% of the time wrong on CoStar, and you got to go look at a pop. It's like, when you get the listing, how do you not know to just update everything? I don't know how to fix this problem, but it has infuriated me since day one. And probably it also maybe even goes back to, I don't want to go down this rabbit trail, but like even how we're licensed. Like, we all sit through the same licensing class together. I don't know why there's not a whole, separate commercial license. And maybe that could set off quality controls for listing and everything else. But it's something that aggravates me that I don't have a solution for, that I wish we did. So I guess me saying this on this podcast, if you're a listener and you're giving this a thought, let us know what you think should happen to fix this problem, because I don't know.
Right, absolutely. Most of the buyers that we deal with, they do assume that there is an MLS on the commercial side, and there's not, and there really should be one. You're right.
I had a listing agent. I was messaging out about a bunch of about 10 or so retail properties. One of the agents called me, he called me regarding an email I sent him saying, "Can I do this, that, and the other with the property?" His actual words to me were, "Why are you calling me about this property? I don't know this, that, and the other." And I said, "This is your property, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "You're the listing agent for it?" He goes, "Yeah." Like, you had the signed listing agreement. You put the listing in CoStar. He goes, "Yeah." I said, "And you're asking me if I expect you to know these things about the property?" And he goes, "Yeah." What do you got? And I'm like, I'm literally like, did you listen to the words that just came out of my mouth that you said? Like, why don't you know these things? This is, I'm going to go down a rabbit trail here, but the bar for professionalism has to change. I don't know how to fix it, but somebody needs to fix it.
Yeah, MLS might help. But yeah, again, it goes back to the accountability. Technology does bring a different level of accountability because everything's right there. You can't say to somebody, "Oh, I sent that to you." Well, where's it at? Where's the email in the inbox? Or text messages. People can screenshot and say, "Nope, I never got that from you." So there's a lot of things that we should be using technology for to increase that accountability. And one final thing, another big difference between commercial and residential, most of these deals, especially in this market, are off market. So you can't use technology to find off market deals. The only way that you as an end buyer or even as a broker can find or broker off-market deals is through those relationships, through those people. Now,
I'm finding off-market deals through tech.
Really? How so?
Well, that's the Reonomy thing. So I'm literally just putting Reonomy records in my CRM, and then initiating. I don't do email anymore because it's real easy to get spam popped or added to a naughty list. So I just reach out via text and initiate conversations. Now, do I get some stop or some unsubscribes? Absolutely. But again, I know how to word the text to get the maximum amount of engagement, to get conversations going. And if somebody says stop or unsubscribe, I don't take that personally, and I don't get all, butthurt that they don't want to talk to anymore. They're not, something's about, usually it's about pain. It's about a catalyst. They don't have anything that's catalyzing them to sell. So they don't, it's like, okay, I don't want to waste their time and I don't want to waste mine trying to persuade them to sell. They don't want to sell.
Right.
I just want to focus on what people that are thinking about it. We're thinking about it. And I a lot of times I'll potentially go for no. It's like, oh, I'm thinking about it. And then we talk about it. And I just say, look, if the deal doesn't make sense for you to list right now, then we don't do it, because that's how a relationship works.
Right.
That's what makes it non-transactional. If you're just like still trying to force somebody to sell when they don't want to, or it's clearly in their best interest not to, then you're not a relationship person. You're a transactional person, and your time in this industry is limited.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. Well, it's funny you brought that up. We just had one where the building was worth about $1 million, and same thing. We found them kind of the similar way that you did. They didn't answer the phone. We sent a text message. They responded to the text message saying, $14 million is my price. Bring me a signed offer, which is ironic. And I'm surprised more people don't respond that way. But yeah,
a lot of them do on my side. But more than half of the time, those responses are generally, I just had one yesterday from that campaign, and I'd actually hit him up 6 months ago, and he wants, something like 350% market rate. I'm like, all right, whenever you want to get real, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And he's like, you don't understand the value of those. So I was like, dude, here's all the comps that are around you. Like, you're not even remotely, if it was like a double thing and you had some unique stuff going on, maybe we could talk about it, but I can't do 350%. That's not going to fly, even in a seller's market.
Right. But I'm actually talking more specifically about sellers that don't want to market their properties.
Right.
So, which is an interesting challenge. And I'm trying to bring tech to that, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. We have a process of automating a non-circumvent, non-disclosure agreement that requires proof of funds from the buyers. Obviously, a lot of these deals are larger dollar amounts, very sensitive, very confidential. Some of them are estate sales or businesses. You cannot let it out that a business is selling. Employees will get nervous, they'll quit, and obviously that ruins the whole sale of the business. So we're trying to bring tech to the quote unquote off market, where you're not allowed to broadcast any of the details of the business or the property. But that's still an area where it's not what you know, it's who you know to get those deals. And right now, those are the best cash flowing deals out there. What are your thoughts on those?
So I guess I've only had like a handful of off markets. They kind of feel like luck when I get them, but it's getting stronger and stronger. What I would say is, number one, I always push the customer to allow me to market at least a little bit right. So I'm newer to business brokerage, unlike you, so I can only speak from the commercial real estate side. When I have that conversation with a seller, I think everybody looks at everything as either listed or off market. But there is another option, which is, I call it semi-off market. So if you ever look at a listing agreement, there's a section there that clearly says, don't advertise my stuff on the internet. Okay, well, that means it's basically like it's like being in a residential MLS. Only realtors can see it. So all that means for you is simply put it on CoStar, not on LoopNet. It's not hard. That's called semi-off market. That means no layperson, no person that works at the business, so to speak, can go on LoopNet, for example, and figure out that the building's being sold. And then obviously, if you're building up your databases of professionals, which you should be doing, you should be able to discreetly market to those people, usually other brokers, that this thing exists, and you're trying to leverage, who and what it is they know. So that's how I address it.
Awesome. Well, we touched on a lot. Really appreciate your time, Chad. Appreciate your content. Again, it'll be linked in the description of the video. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
You get the deal closed.